David Dimbleby and Robin Cook, and David actually just slipped, as a slip of the tongue, he called him Robin Cock, which of course caused this slight embarrassment in the room, very briefly, actually dispelled by Robin Cook, who said, "That's no problem, Mr. Bumblebee." And on it all went. But the really fierce moment, which you can actually see on the Question Time website in the old programmes, was between Ian Hislop and Mary Archer, where Ian Hislop went for Mary Archer about Jeffrey Archer, and I think said something along the lines of, "Your husband is the reason that people don't trust politicians." And if she'd had heat vision, Ian Hislop would no longer be with us, I can assure you of that. And, you know, capturing that moment on telly is very good.
May I just say that all of David Coleman's views are his alone, and I'm not part of Jane.
No relation.
Completely.
Yes. We also have a profanity dump here.
Yeah, it never works.
It works very well.
David, I want to talk to you. You've given us examples of the type of programs you've worked on, mainly sort of factual and news. As a freelance director, what about, have you ever been approached to do films or dramas, or is that a different type of animal?
I make films for television as well. I just do multi-camera live and as live programs, or recorded. I do a lot of that, but I also make single camera film type programs. You know, the approach, the difference is that in a studio or an outside broadcast you have lots of cameras to take the shots of an event as it happens. With a film you use one camera and then have to record everything separately. So, you know, if you're recording an interview with somebody and then recording the reporter, you have to record the answers and then move the camera around. You know, the fundamental difference. So I do that as well.
And what have you been working on lately? What's your latest?
The last thing I directed for Channel 4 was Surgery Live, about 6 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago, maybe a little longer than that. Yeah, live operations, yes, in hospitals around the country.
Now, there's a programme I will never watch.
It's one of the very few programmes you can start by saying cut.
At that point, David, I think we should have your ideas for new TV programmes. We especially liked, what was that one, the talent one?
Oh yes, well particularly for the Jewish audience, it's a cookery programme called Britain's Got Cholent. I think has definitely got legs.
I'm happy to market that.
We plan to do it for the charities.
Yes, for the charity, that would be great.
Britain's Got Cholent.
Can I ask you a question? A friend of mine, he has a dream. He wants to establish the Jewish answer for Al Jazeera, like a TV channel that will broadcast in English, in Arabic, and will give the response, or will show the other, the Jewish response maybe. Do you think there is any liability for something like this, or there is a chance for something like this? And
why not?
I don't know. They said
if somebody will back it, why not?
They say at least that there are how many? 150 million viewers, potential viewers for Al Jazeera.
Gabby, you know, it takes a will. It takes the collective will of the Jewish society and Jewish business people. Look how many years it's taking us to get to a point where, you know, we have even a Jewish radio station. You know, nearly 300,000 Jewish people in the UK, and this fight the whole time to get people to actually support it. You need a strong business leader who's going to actually realise the absolute power of communication, which is coming back to. Yeah. That's a good question. Thank you. Coming back to you briefly, David. The power of communication, the power of TV. Does that attract a certain type of individual?
I would say not in my experience. Attracted to the power of communication. I think television. I think is much more about the glamour thing. I would suggest. I doubt that anybody gets into television for the power of being able to say what they want, because despite all the talk about bias on television and radio in lots of areas, and we know specifically what we're talking about, but despite that, it's very difficult for people actually to engineer that, to manufacture a way of doing it. I think a lot of it comes about through ignorance and through stupidity and through laziness, possibly. This lack of balance in some broadcasts, but you'd never be able to do it because of the power of trying to get a message across certainly through terrestrial and big satellite broadcasts. I don't think you could do that. No, it's the glamour.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, that leads on to my classic question. If there was someone sitting here right now who wanted to become a TV producer or a TV director, what advice would you give them?
Well, the first thing I do is ask them why.
Yes.
And the second thing is, as I hinted at earlier, come along with some ideas. Think about what you would like to see on television. And despite the large numbers of people who do media courses, I don't really think that's a valid thing to do, to be absolutely honest. I think a media course is something like teaching a farmer to drive a tractor, but not knowing anything about the food he's going to grow.
Yeah.
And I go off and do something else and then come along with an idea about something you would like to see or hear on telly or radio.
Do you think it's much more difficult from when you first went into BBC? How difficult do you think it is to get into production?
I'm pretty sure it's difficult unless you're prepared to work for little or no money for some time and then get in like that. Yeah, 30, 40 years, absolutely, with added time for really good behaviour. But I think it's probably difficult, although I'm not so sure about it. And lots of people ask me for work experience all the time on projects that I'm doing. And I think that's about the only way to deal with it, really. There's no real structure as far as I can see. You just have to drive at it.
David, thank you very much indeed. It's been a pleasure having you on. If people want to contact you, commission some work or anything of that nature, or get some ideas from you, what's the best way to do so?
Go to my website, all my contacts there. It's DJ Coleman, that's C-O-L-E-M-A-N, djcoleman.co.uk. The DJ are my initials, incidentally, not some attempt at being trendy.
Not like DJ Mike.
No.
Okay, David, thank you very much.
Pleasure.
It's been a pleasure having you on. We're going up to the news now with Lamar and Daniel Bedingfield.